Raise your voice at me again and this ends now. Ava's words sliced through the stunned silence of the downtown LA penthouse like a razor, low and trembling with barely contained fury. Every head in the room snapped toward her. The collectors, the curators, the crypto-millionaires clutching their champagne flutes like life rafts. Nolan Voss stood rooted near the gleaming Jeff Koons sculpture, his face flushed crimson, champagne still dripping from his ruined Rick Owens boots onto the pristine concrete floor. The bottle lay on its side between them, foaming slowly, like blood from a fresh wound. Valeria Cross, the woman whose bracelet had accidentally knocked Ava's arm, took one subtle step back, her smirk flickering for the first time. Ava didn't blink, didn't flinch. Her uniform was soaked at the cuff, her hand steady despite the tremor in her chest. Nolan opened his mouth, rage building again, then closed it. Because in that frozen second, with 25 of the most powerful people in the art world watching, he suddenly realized she wasn't bluffing. And no one in the room, not Nolan, not Valeria, not even Ava herself, knew yet that those 9 words were about to cost him everything he'd built. Before we continue, I want to speak to you for a moment. If stories like this remind you that kindness still exists, if they make you feel something real in a world that's getting louder and colder, then I'd love to have you here with us. This channel isn't just videos, it's a tiny corner of the internet where good people come together. Where we believe in second chances, in hope, and in humanity. And right now you're early. You're part of the very first people building this family with me. So if you want to grow with us, if you want more stories that touch your heart, go ahead and subscribe. It's free, it supports the channel more than you know. And it tells me that there are still people out there who believe in kindness just as much as I do. If you have subscribed to this channel, I can officially say welcome to the family. The penthouse crowned a private tower in downtown Los Angeles, 40 stories up, where the city sprawled out below like a circuit board of lights and traffic. From the outside, it looked like a floating glass box. Sleek, untouchable, the kind of place featured in Architectural Digest but never actually lived in. Inside, it was all sharp angles and cold luxury. Poured concrete floors warmed by hidden radiators, white walls that doubled as projection screens for digital art, and spotlights that made every piece on display glow like it belonged in the Met. Nolan Voss didn't throw parties here. He orchestrated events. And the staff? They were the invisible machinery that kept the illusion running. Maids like Ava Reyes knew the rules by heart. Black uniform, hair tied back, no jewelry, no perfume, no eye contact with guests unless absolutely necessary. You entered through the service elevator, stocked the bars and trays in the butler's pantry, and moved through the rooms like smoke, refilling glasses, clearing plates, vanishing before anyone noticed you'd been there. Speak only if spoken to. Disturb the vibe and you were out. No second chances, no glowing reference. The job paid well enough to keep Ava's head above water, covering her mom's rehab bills and the rent on a tiny Boyle Heights apartment. It was supposed to be temporary. 2 years later, it still was. That October evening, the penthouse was primed for the soft launch of Voss Vault, Nolan's big swing into democratizing blue-chip art. Fractional shares in Warhols and Basquiat's, blockchain tracked, promising fat returns to anyone with a 7-figure net worth. Only 25 invites went out, heavy-hitting collectors from Beverly Hills, gallery owners flying private from New York, a couple of crypto bros who'd made billions on meme coins. Security in plain black suits hovered just out of frame. Champagne flowed from bottles that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The air smelled like fresh orchids and quiet power plays. Nolan Voss stood near the chrome Jeff Koons balloon dog, all sharp edges and head-to-toe black, laughing that easy billionaire laugh that made people lean in. At his elbow was Valeria Cross, the ice-blonde queen of Chelsea galleries, the one woman in the room who could match him stare for stare. Everyone knew their backstory. A decade ago, they'd been the power couple of the contemporary scene, flipping street art into millions, even rumored to have shared a loft in Tribeca. Then came the blowout over a disputed Basquiat, accusations of bad faith, lawsuits whispered about in auction houses. They'd been polite enemies ever since, smiling for the cameras while sharpening knives behind the scenes. Valeria's presence tonight was billed as support for an old friend, but nobody bought it. She was here to scout weaknesses. Ava glided through the crowd with a fresh bottle of Dom, footsteps silent, tray balanced perfectly. She'd done this 100 times. Refill without interrupting, disappear before thanks were needed. Nolan was mid-gesture, explaining blockchain provenance to a cluster of investors. Valeria, ever dramatic, flicked her wrist to make a point, her heavy gold bracelet catching Ava's forearm with pinpoint timing. The bottle tilted. Champagne cascaded over Nolan's limited edition Rick Owens boots, pooling on the flawless floor like an accusation. The room didn't gasp. Just stopped. Nolan's charm evaporated. Are you serious right now? His voice cracked across the space like a whip. These are $4,000 boots. Do you have any idea what you just ruined? Conversations died mid-sentence. Phones lowered. The string quartet in the corner faltered. Ava steadied the bottle, pulse racing, but she didn't retreat. Sir, I don't want excuses. Nolan stepped closer, looming, face flushed. I'm launching the future of art investment tonight, and I've got some careless maid destroying everything. You're done. Pack your bags and get out, now. Valeria's lips curved, just a fraction. Ava's mind flashed. Her mom's shaky voice on the phone last week, the overdue rehab invoice, the way people like Nolan treated staff like furniture. Something inside her went very still. She set the bottle down with deliberate care. The soft clink echoed. Then she looked up, straight into Nolan Voss's eyes. Raise your voice at me again, she said, voice low, steady, carrying to every frozen guest in the room, and this ends now. Nolan's mouth opened, then closed. The rage stalled. Valeria's smile flickered. Ava didn't stop. Your guest knocked my arm on purpose because she's been shorting your vault positions through crypto proxies. Check the insurance filings on that new Basquiat sketch. She's betting on a provenance scandal to tank your launch. The room inhaled as one. Nolan's eyes narrowed. He snatched his phone from his pocket, thumb flying across the screen. Seconds later, his face went from red to ashen. Valeria took one involuntary step back. Nolan looked up slowly. Wire her $150,000, he said to his assistant, voice flat. And offer her a job. Let authenticate her. Ava didn't smile. She didn't thank him. I'll take the money, she said quietly. For my mom's treatment. But I don't work for men who scream at staff. She turned and walked toward the service elevator, head high, uniform still damp, as the most powerful people in American art watched in stunned silence. Later that night, from her Boyle Heights apartment, Ava sent an anonymous email to 3 top art journalists. Detailed proof of Valeria's short positions. She hit send, closed her laptop, and finally exhaled. By morning, the stories exploded online, headlines screaming about gallery manipulation and market rigging. Valeria's name was everywhere. But buried in the third paragraph of one piece was a line that made Ava's blood run cold. Sources also note minor inconsistencies in provenance records for several pieces listed on Voss Vault. Her tip had ricocheted. Nolan's empire was now under the same spotlight. And then her phone buzzed, an unknown number texting a single frame from security footage. Valeria's bracelet flick, slowed down, deliberate. The spill hadn't been an accident. Valeria had staged it, testing Nolan's temper, probing for cracks. And Ava had just given them both a reason to come after her. Ava's Boyle Heights apartment was a third-floor walk-up on East 1st Street, the kind of place where the walls were thin enough to hear your neighbor's TV and the windows rattled every time a lowrider cruised by. It wasn't much. 1 bedroom, a kitchenette barely big enough for a hot plate, and a living room that doubled as her office. But it was hers. No service elevators. No invisible rules. Just rent that was now 3 months paid in advance, thanks to the 6-figure wire that had hit her account the morning after the penthouse preview. She sat cross-legged on the faded IKEA rug, laptop balanced on a coffee table scarred from years of takeout containers, surrounded by printouts, sticky notes, and a half-eaten container of pupusas from the place downstairs. The payout had bought her time. Time to breathe, time to help her mom stay in the better rehab facility up in Pasadena, time to finally do what she'd been too scared to do for years, dig. Ava had always been good with details. Back when she was 19 and on a full ride to the appraisal program at Christie's Los Angeles satellite, she could spot a forged pigment shift from across the room. Life had derailed that, her mom's relapse, the medical debt, the need for steady cash, but the skill hadn't gone anywhere. Now, with public databases, auction archives, and a few dark web forums she'd learned about in school, she started cross-referencing every provenance certificate Voss Vault had published. It didn't take long to confirm what she'd suspected that night. Valeria Cross wasn't just shorting Nolan's platform, She was orchestrating quiet sell-offs of pieces her own gallery had authenticated years earlier, pieces now flagged as questionable in private collector chats. Ava built the dossier slowly, methodically, screenshots, blockchain wallet traces, insurance filings. She saved everything to an encrypted drive and backed it up to the cloud under a fake name. 3 weeks after the preview, her phone buzzed with an unknown Beverly Hills number. Ava Reyes? The voice was smooth, professional. Mr. Voss would like to meet. Privately. He believes there's been a misunderstanding. She almost hung up. Instead, she agreed to a public spot, a neutral cafe in the Arts District at noon. Nolan showed up alone, no entourage, in a baseball cap and hoodie that probably cost more than her rent. He looked tired, the sharp edges softened by sleepless nights. He slid into the booth across from her, placed a slim leather folder on the table, and pushed it over without preamble. 7 figures, he said quietly. Clean. Offshore if you want. Plus a full ride for your mother's treatment, any facility in the country. All you do is sign the NDA and delete whatever files you've been compiling. Ava opened the folder. The number made her stomach flip. Enough to change everything, no more scraping, no more fear. She closed it. I'll think about it, she said. Nolan's eyes searched hers. 48 hours. That night, she photographed every page of the offer and uploaded it anonymously to a major art fraud watchdog forum, along with a timeline tying the bribe attempt to the ongoing provenance questions. By morning, the post was viral in industry circles. Headlines shifted from Valeria Cross under scrutiny to Voss offers hush money to former employee. Nolan's PR team went into damage control, but the optics were brutal. Then the intimidation started. First, an email from her own account, to herself, containing photos of her mom's rehab facility taken from inside the parking lot. Subject line, careful what you delete. Then a hacked bank alert, a $10,000 transfer out of her checking that vanished before she could call the bank. Late one night, she spotted a black SUV idling across the street, lights off. When she stepped onto the balcony, it pulled away slowly. Ava didn't scare easy. She changed passwords, bought a burner phone, started carrying pepper spray. And she kept digging, this time into Nolan's inner circle. That's when she found the encrypted messages buried in a leaked Voss vault backup someone had posted in retaliation. Regular transfers from Valeria's offshore entities to an account registered to Landon Pierce, Nolan's own CFO. Receipts for consulting that lined up perfectly with every questionable authentication Voss vault had pushed. Landon wasn't just sloppy. He was Valeria's inside man, feeding her real-time data on Nolan's holdings while Nolan thought he was running the show alone. Ava stared at the screen until her eyes burned. But the real gut punch came the next day. While tracing one of Valeria's old gallery sales from 15 years back, Ava stumbled on a familiar name in the footnotes. Reyes Mateo. Her father. He hadn't been just a struggling street artist, scraping by in the Arts District before it was cool. He'd been an early whistleblower, quietly documenting forged provenances in Valeria's first big Chelsea show, gathering evidence to go to the press. The trail ended abruptly the year Ava turned 10. Her father's sudden bankruptcy, the accident that left him too broken to paint again, the slow spiral that ended with him gone before she was 16. Valeria hadn't just silenced him. She'd erased him. And the very piece that had started it all, the one her father had flagged as fake, was now listed as a crown jewel in Voss Vault's upcoming drop. Ava closed the laptop, hands shaking, not with fear this time but with something colder. This wasn't just about fraud anymore. It was blood. The Warhol print had been rolled up in a cardboard tube at the back of her mom's storage unit in East LA for 15 years, forgotten or maybe hidden on purpose. Ava found it while sorting through boxes during a weekend visit to the rehab facility, helping her mom downsize for the long-term program Nolan's payout had finally made possible. It was small, unframed, a screen print from the early 80s. Electric colors, Marilyn's face repeated in that iconic pop style. On the back, in her father's careful handwriting, was a note. For Ava, when you're ready to see the world clearly. Her father, Mateo Reyes, had died when she was 16. Everyone said heart attack, stress from debt, the usual story for struggling artists in a city that chewed them up. But Ava had always known he'd been more than a weekend painter. Now, holding the print under the harsh fluorescent light of the storage unit, she felt the weight of it. She took it to a discreet appraiser in Pasadena, not one connected to the big houses. The verdict came back quiet and matter-of-fact. Authentic, early proof, excellent condition. Estimated private sale value, 8 figures. Ava didn't celebrate. She just stared at the number on the appraisal sheet until it blurred. 2 weeks later, through a trusted broker who asked no questions, the print sold to an anonymous European collector. The money hit an offshore account she'd set up under a shell LLC, Reyes Rising Fund. Seed capital. Not for revenge, at least that's what she told herself. For something better. She started small. A simple website, clean design, mission statement about ethical investing in emerging Latinx, Black and Indigenous artists. No hype about 10x returns, just fair shares, transparent provenance, real community impact. She posted on niche art forums, Reddit threads, Instagram accounts run by young curators. The response was slow at first, then snowballing. Artists submitted portfolios. Small investors, teachers, nurses, people who'd never touched the blue-chip world, started pledging. Word spread. Reyes Rising was the anti-Voss vault. That's when the attacks began. First, her website went down for 6 hours, DDoS crude but effective. When it came back up, fake reviews flooded the contact form. Accusations of stolen art, forged credentials, even a planted news article on a shady blog claiming Ava Reyes was a disgraced maid running a Ponzi scheme. She traced the IP origins as far as she could, Eastern European servers, routed through shell companies tied to known digital mercenaries. The kind of work that cost real money. Then came the rumors in industry WhatsApp groups. Heard the Reyes girl is shopping fakes. She's Valeria's plant, trying to tank Nolan from the inside. Ava knew who was paying the bills. Nolan and Valeria had gone public with their reconciliation, a joint press release about burying the hatchet for the good of the market. Behind the scenes, they were circling the wagons. Ava needed more than digital scraps. She needed hard proof, something that would stick in court, something federal. The opportunity came in the form of an invite forwarded from an old Christie's contact. A private, no-press auction at a Beverly Hills mansion. Ultra-exclusive, bidders vetted, phones checked at the door, NDAs signed in blood. Voss Vault was unloading a select reserve of pieces to shore up cash flow amid the scrutiny. Ava borrowed a dress from a friend who worked wardrobe on sets in Hollywood. Simple black cocktail, elegant but forgettable. Fake name on the bidder paddle. Elena Morales, representing a small family office out of Miami. Hair down, makeup heavier, glasses she didn't need. She looked like a dozen other young trust fund reps in the room. The mansion was old-school glamour. Marble staircase, chandeliers, security in tuxedos. Nolan was there, schmoozing near the preview pedestals. Valeria too, on his arm like nothing had ever happened. Ava kept her distance, paddle low, bidding conservatively on minor lots to blend in. During the break, she slipped into the garden terrace for air. Nolan and Valeria were already there, voices low but carrying in the quiet night. "You're sure the new certificates will hold?" Valeria asked, lighting a cigarette. "They'll hold long enough," Nolan replied, voice tight. "We overvalued the reserves by 30%, standard inflation. Everyone does it. As long as the market stays hot. Until it doesn't," Valeria cut in. "And when the music stops, we're the ones holding the forgeries we paid top dollar for." Nolan laughed, bitter. "We both signed off on those authentications. You wanted the margins as much as I did." Ava's blood froze. She pressed deeper into the shadows, phone recording audio from her clutch. Overvalued by 30%. Forgeries. They'd known. All of it. The auction resumed. Ava bid on one lot, a small Liechtenstein study, and one just to keep cover. But her mind was already racing ahead. She had them on tape. Admitting complicity. Admitting fraud. And now the target wasn't just market manipulation. It was federal wire fraud, securities violations, the kind of charges that didn't end with slaps on the wrist. Ava slipped out before dessert, heart pounding harder than it had the night she'd faced Nolan down in his penthouse. This wasn't personal anymore. It was war. And she finally had the ammunition to win it. Ava didn't sleep much anymore. The dossier was ready, hundreds of pages. Provenance chains broken link by link, blockchain transactions mapped like a crime board, audio from the Beverly Hills terrace, leaked emails from Landon, the forged insurance docs, everything time-stamped and cross-referenced. She packaged it into 3 separate encrypted drops. One to the SEC's tip line, one to the art desks at the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times, and one to a non-profit watchdog group that specialized in cultural heritage fraud. All anonymous. All untraceable. She hit send from a public library computer in Koreatown at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday in November. By Thursday the storm broke. The first headline hit ArtNet at dawn. Exclusive. Voss Vault faces allegations of systemic provenance fraud. By noon the Times ran a longer piece. Whistleblower documents suggest widespread overvaluation and forgery in billion-dollar art platform. Cable news picked it up by evening. CNBC anchors debating whether this was the Theranos of the art world. Voss Vault's website went offline for scheduled maintenance. Valeria's Chelsea Gallery posted a terse notice. Temporarily closed for inventory review. The SEC moved fast. Friday morning, federal agents and windbreakers walked into Voss HQ in Century City, cameras rolling from news vans parked across the street. Computers seized, servers imaged, employees sent home with subpoenas tucked in their designer bags. Nolan's personal accounts were frozen pending review. Stock in the private shell company that backed Voss Vault, already wobbling, plunged in secondary markets. Valeria's gallery stayed dark, but word leaked that her passports had been flagged. Ava watched it unfold from her apartment, volume low on the TV, burner phone in hand. She felt no triumph, just a hollow kind of justice, like finally exhaling after holding her breath for years. Then came the message. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. No lawyers. No recording. Just you and me. Midnight. Griffith Warehouse, LA River. Come alone or the next leak is about your mother's rehab records. Ava stared at the screen for a long time. She went anyway. The warehouse was a relic from the industrial days. Boarded windows, graffiti tags faded by river fog, the smell of damp concrete and diesel. Ava parked 2 blocks away, walked in wearing a hoodie and jeans, small digital recorder sewn into the lining of her jacket, live streaming silent audio to a secure cloud drop just in case. Nolan was already there, alone, under a single hanging bulb that swung gently in the draft. He looked smaller than she remembered, no tailored suit, just dark jeans and a black coat, hands in pockets, eyes bloodshot. You did this, he said. Not angry. Just stating a fact. I gave people the truth, Ava replied, keeping 10 feet between them. You built the lies. He laughed once, short, bitter. You think you're clean? This world eats idealists, Ava. Always has. He stepped closer, pulling a flash drive from his coat. Everything left, he said. Offshore wallets, uncut holdings, a few pieces I can still move quietly. 10% for you. Walk away. Let the probes die in committee. We both disappear. New names, new lives. Your mom gets the best care money can buy. No more looking over your shoulder. Ava didn't reach for the drive. You still don't get it, she said quietly. This was never about money. Nolan's face hardened. Then what? Revenge for your father? He was collateral, Ava. The market was brutal back then. Valeria pushed harder than I did, but we both. The recorder caught every word. Sirens started in the distance, faint at first, then growing. Nolan froze. You didn't. I didn't call them, Ava said. And she hadn't. But someone had been listening. Headlights flooded the warehouse doors. Federal agents poured in, vests, rifles, shouts of hands in the air. Nolan didn't run. He just looked at Ava as they cuffed him. You win, he said. But Ava was already backing toward the exit, heart hammering. Because the next morning when the raid details leaked, the story wasn't just fraud anymore. The seized servers revealed something bigger. Voss Vault's NFT sales had been routing millions through layered wallets that ended in accounts tied to sanctioned oligarchs and South American cartels. Valeria's gallery had been the physical endpoint, shipping art that was mostly empty frames with hidden cash and bearer bonds. Money laundering on an industrial scale. International headlines replaced the art fraud angle overnight. American art empire linked to global crime syndicates. Interpol issued red notices. Valeria was detained trying to board a private jet out of Teterboro. Nolan's empire didn't just crumble. It imploded, live on every network, every feed, every phone screen in the world. And Ava? She deleted the warehouse audio after it auto-uploaded, walked out into the pre-dawn fog along the LA River, and disappeared into the city lights. The war wasn't over. But for the first time she was fighting it on her terms. 1 year later, June in Los Angeles, the kind of perfect blue sky day that makes people forget the traffic and the fires. The arts district had changed even in 12 months. More murals, more breweries, more foot traffic spilling out from converted warehouses. At the corner of Mateo and Palmetto, a new sign glowed in understated neon, Reyes Rising Gallery. The opening wasn't flashy. No red carpet, no celebrity DJ, no champagne towers. Just a clean white space with track lighting, emerging artists on the walls. Vibrant abstracts from a young Chicana painter out of East LA, sculptural installations by a black queer artist from South Central, digital pieces from indigenous creators in New Mexico. Every tag listed fair splits. 60% to the artist, 40% reinvested into the fund. No hype. No hidden fees. The crowd was packed anyway. Young curators, museum scouts, ethical investors who'd pulled out of the old guard, even a few reporters who'd followed Ava's story from anonymous tipster to cultural force. Her mom stood near the entrance in a simple sundress, sober 9 months now, eyes shining as she greeted guests. Ava wore black trousers and a white blouse, professional, understated, powerful. The show sold out in 2 hours. Not a single piece left on the walls by the time the sun dipped behind the skyline. Ava stood in the back office, reviewing the final numbers on her laptop, when her assistant knocked softly. "There's someone outside. Says it's personal." Ava walked to the massive front window. Nolan Voss stood on the sidewalk, alone. No driver, no security. Just him, thinner, hair longer and unstyled, wearing a plain gray hoodie that did nothing to hide the exhaustion carved into his face. Trial had ended 2 weeks earlier. Guilty on multiple counts of wire fraud, securities violations, money laundering conspiracy. Sentencing in 30 days, prison time almost certain. Valeria had taken a plea, already in federal custody upstate. He looked up when he saw her. Ava stepped outside, letting the door close behind her. The street hummed with evening energy, people laughing, heading to dinner, oblivious. Nolan's voice was rough. "I just wanted to see it. What you built." Ava said nothing. "I'm selling everything," he continued. "The penthouse goes to auction next month. The remaining art, whatever isn't seized. I thought maybe you'd want first look. For the fund." She studied him. No anger left. Just distance. "You taught me something," he said quietly. "The market isn't forever. People remember who burned them." Ava folded her arms. "Is that an apology?" "It's the closest I've got." He turned to go, then paused. "Your father's piece, the Warhol. I read the filing." "I'm sorry." Ava's expression didn't change, but inside, the memory flashed. The courtroom, 3 months earlier. Federal courthouse in downtown LA. Packed gallery, cameras outside. Ava on the stand, calm under cross-examination. The prosecutor had introduced the final exhibit. Enhanced imaging of the Warhol's verso, the hidden layer beneath the signature. Nolan's early brushwork, distinctive, unmistakable, visible under infrared. He'd forged it himself 20 years ago when he was still hungry, still climbing. Sold it through a small gallery that later became Valeria's first big break. When Mateo Reyes, then a junior authenticator, flagged it quietly, Nolan and Valeria buried him. Bad loans, fabricated debt, whispers that ruined his reputation until he broke. The Warhol Ava had inherited, the one she'd sold to seed Reyes Rising, wasn't just authentic. It was the original crime. The one that started everything. Poetic didn't cover it. The jury had taken less than 4 hours. Back on the sidewalk, Ava looked at Nolan one last time. "Goodbye, Mr. Voss." She stepped inside. He stayed on the sidewalk a moment longer, watching the lights and laughter through the glass. Then Ava reached for the cord and slowly lowered the blinds. The door locked with a soft click. Inside, the gallery hummed with celebration. Artists toasting, investors writing checks, her mom hugging a young painter who just sold her first piece. Outside, Nolan Voss walked away alone, disappearing into the arts district crowd. His name would fade from catalogs, from auction records, from the walls of the powerful. Ava's was just beginning to rise. And in the new world she was building, there was no room for ghosts. What will you rate this story from 0 to 10? And what part of the world are you watching from? Comment your country below. Let's build a global community rooted in kindness and second chances. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. Your support brings us closer to our 1K subscriber milestone and inspires us to keep creating more emotional stories of resilience, healing, and Black excellence. Thank you for being part of our journey. Your presence matters more than you know. Hope to see you again.